Hello everybody, Bumy Goldson here. What I want to talk to you about today is Abraham's Wheel. This is a fantastic tool that will help you in your music playing and finding chords for your songs. If you do a Google image search for music wheel, you will find there are many tools similar to this. The difference is that this will become obsolete after you use it for a while because you will internalize the fundamentals of music theory and the concepts so well that you will automatically know the relationship between the scales and the chords, and you won't need any tool to help you. All the complicated music theory branches off from this. This is the essential of music theory. I've got another video that shows you how to make this. You can make it for yourself, for your friends. Just search on YouTube for how to make Abraham's music wheel and look for this video with this thing, okay? Okay, let's get started. There's 3 wheels here. There's the bottom wheel. This one has the notes in it. It's got C, C sharp, D. The next one is for the scales. See, it says major root, major second, major third, minor root, things like that. And then you've got this little wheel over here, that's for the chords. Now let's see how it all works together. First, we're going to talk about the scales. So when you want to find a scale, you take this hole over here that says major root, and you move it over to the scale that you want. So if you want to play C major, you take the major root and you move it over to C. And you've got all the notes in the C scale. You got C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. Those are the notes in the C scale. They're all the white keys on the piano. Okay, let's say you wanted to find a different scale. Let's say you were playing in G. So you take the major root, the hole over here, and you move it over to G. And now you can see you've got G, A, B. It's the same notes like the C, except the only difference is you've got an F sharp over here instead of an F. And that's the difference between a C scale and a G scale. There's only one note of a difference. They're very similar. This works for any note. Let's say you wanted to play in E flat major. You take the major root, the hole over here, and you slide it over to E flat. And now you've got E flat, and you've got all the notes in the E flat scale. Got E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, and D. Okay. Now the same thing's with the minor. You want to find the minor key. There's a hole over here called minor root. So you take it over here, and you can bring it over to any note you want. If you want to play the A minor scale, you take the minor root hole and you move it over to A. And automatically all the other notes in the A minor scale will appear over here. This is how music theory works. If you understand this, you'll be able to do it automatically yourself. Let's say you wanted to play an F sharp minor scale. You take the minor root, this hole, and you move it over to F sharp, and you've got the F sharp minor scale. It's made up of these notes over here: F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D, and E. Okay? Now that's how the scales work. So when you're playing a song, you figure out what scale you're in based on which notes are in the scale. So let's say you're playing in C major. You're playing these notes, that would mean you're playing in the C major scale. Now once you set your scale, you want to know what chords can you play from this scale. So every note in the scale has a chord that has that name. So there's a C chord in the C scale, there's a D chord in the C scale, there's an E chord, an F chord, a G chord, an A chord, and a B chord. Now which ones are going to be majors or minors it's going to depend on this little wheel. It's going to tell us. So let's say the C chord. The C chord is going to be a C major chord. So it's because the chord scale is going to show you, the chord wheel is going to show you that the first goes to the C, and the third, see there's 2 thirds over here. There's a minor and a major. There's 2 arrows over here. Now only the major arrow is pointing to an actual note. It's pointing to E. So that's the note we're going to have to use because this one's not in the scale. And the 5th is going to be G. So the C chord, this wheel is telling us that the C chord, that's this first over here, is made up of C, E, and G. It's also telling us that it's a major chord. So the C major chord is the C chord that fits in the C scale. Now that might sound a little bit confusing, but if you think about it and you watch the rest of the video, it might become clearer. Now let's try the next chord. Next chord's a D. Okay, so we move the first over to D. We want to know what's the D chord in the C scale. Remember, this is the C scale. We're in the C scale. We're not getting out of the C scale. That's in terms of the key of the song. Those are the notes. We want to know the chords, though. The chords are 3 notes that are played together or one after the other very quickly. And we want to know which chords are in this scale. So for the D chord, we've got the first over here. That's the D. Okay. And the third, you'll see over here, there's 2 arrows over here. There's the major and there's the minor. Now only the minor is pointing at a note. So that means the chord that we're playing for D is the minor chord, the D minor chord, which is made up of the notes D, F, and A. Okay, next chord will be E, and it will be an E minor because only the minor note arrow is pointing at a note. So it's E, G, and B. That's the E minor chord. The next chord is the F. We want to know if it's a major or minor. We look at the third. The third tells us if it's a major or minor. All right, this third over here, it's major. It's pointing at the A. Okay, the next note in the scale is G. So we want to know which chord can we play for G that will fit in the C scale. And the answer is G major, because look at the third. The third major is pointing at a note that's in the scale. Okay, and the fifth is a D. That means that the chord for G in the C scale is a G major, and it's made up of these notes, G, B, and D. Next one is an A. It's going to be a minor. It's got the first, the third, and here's the fifth. And the last chord, this one's a little bit tricky. We point the first at the B, and now we're going to find the B chord. So the third tells us that it's going to be a minor. The problem is that the fifth is not pointing at anything. There's no note over here. So that's a problem. Every scale has one chord like that. It doesn't quite fit in the scale. I like to use these chords sometimes to create interesting changes. Sometimes you can roll over into a different scale. Like for example, you can change into the G scale right now. Right? Take the major root, move it over into the G scale. And in the middle of your song, you can just play a B minor chord, which is made up of this, that, and now the fifth note here is actually going to be part of a scale. Now people might not realize that, and you can just go ahead and continue with that scale. You could now be playing in the G scale. So let's say you're playing your song, and you're playing in C, and you're trying to find chords for your song, and you're singing a certain note, and you don't know what chord to use. So you could try every chord in the world, but Abraham's wheel will tell you which chords you can use. There's only a limited number you can use. So the way you do it is like this. You can point one of the arrows on this chord wheel, anyone, doesn't really matter, at the note you're singing. Let's say you're singing a C, so you want to know what chords can I use for that note. I'm singing the note C at this point in the song, and I want a chord for it. You can take the chord wheel and you turn it around so that the arrows are pointing at the C note, and then you can see what chords come out of that. So you can either point the first at the C note, and you'll see that you've got a C major. So you can use the C major chord while you're singing the C note. Or another common chord would be to point the fifth at the C and see what chord comes out of that. In this case, it's going to be an F major. You can play an F major chord and you could sing a C note, and that will sound fine. And you'll have to use your own judgment to see which chord you want to use. You can also use a third. Which third you use is going to be important, because you have to make sure that whichever third you point at your note, the other arrows are pointing to the scale. At least one of them should be pointing into the scale. Hopefully both of them. So let's say we try to point the major third at the C. We're going to see that that's not really going to work, because the first is not pointing at any chord and the fifth is not pointing at any chord. You could try and see if you like it, and you can do that. But what's more likely, what you would probably want to do, is to try the minor. You move the minor third, you point that at the C, and you see now that you can play an A minor. It actually sounds really nice, because it sounds a little harmonic, because you're playing an A minor, and the note that you're singing is sort of a harmonic note. Okay? And that's it. It's very, very simple. If you could understand this wheel, you could understand music theory at its core, and you could branch off to all the different types of music theory that there are. This is very basic. This is unfortunately they don't teach this at this level. They start off with all kinds of complicated things. This is really the essentials of music theory. If you understand this, you will be able to understand everything. Okay? Thanks for watching.